Hi, I'm Dean from High Point Networks, and thanks for joining Two Wolves in a Bar. So, what are Two Wolves in a Bar? Well, it's this discussion between High Point Networks, our new exciting partner, Arctic Wolf, and you. And over a number of episodes, we're going to be talking about SOC as a service. That is Security Operations Center as a service, and this special partnership between High Point Networks and Arctic Wolf. So let's get started. So to help us think through all of this, to package it and to really help us understand, I brought in my friend Matt from Arctic Wolf, who is a subject matter expert and speaks with folks all around the country and even beyond that. So as we get started, Matt, would you mind introducing yourself?
Yeah, absolutely. So as Dean mentioned, my name is Matt Denick. I lead product marketing at Arctic Wolf for our managed risk solution. And really what that is we're going to get into a number of episodes later on to talk about that. But that's looking at taking a more proactive approach to security, thinking about things, beyond vulnerability, such as that affect your digital risk posture. That could be, what does your exposure look like on the dark web, and what system misconfigurations you might have in your environment that would sort of like lead to gaps in your posture that could be exploited. So yeah, I've been at Arctic Wolf for about a year. I have a pretty extensive background in security and sort of the technology space, as well as telecom. I've done business in 40 countries around the world in the telecom space. So it's been a pretty fun ride, but I'm excited to be here with Dean today to talk about some really cool things going on in the security space.
So Matt, I believe I've seen more interest in SOC as a service in the last 6 or 9 months than I've ever seen before. And I think the reason behind this interest in Security Operations Center as a service is, I think you can kind of explain it in two camps. So there's this traditional camp that has maybe been down the path of building their own security operations center. And this typically evolves around bringing in an on-prem SIEM, the Security Information and Event Management Platform. And that can be a daunting task. It can be expensive. The human resources that go into it is challenging. And for whatever reason, it's not working out. They're not seeing a quick return on their investment or a quick realization of value. And then on the other side, the other camp, perhaps you have an organization that has already tried the Security Operations Center as a service, and for whatever reason, it just didn't work out. So either of those camps, I think, was the genesis for this better together partnership between High Point Networks and Arctic Wolf. And just to take it one step further, I think there's a lot of confusion, or maybe just wondering or misunderstanding about what really makes up the Security Operations Center. Is it just SIEM, or is it SIEM and other components? Maybe it's threat intel feeds. Maybe it's continual vulnerability assessment. Maybe there's some type of software, we'll call it like a mechanical agent type of function out there that really gives you that 360-degree view of actionable intelligence. So I'm wondering if you're seeing those things too, Matt. Just this spike in interest and the confusion about what really makes up the Security Operations Center.
Yeah, for sure. I think it's, just to talk about that a little bit, it is definitely something we see a lot of interest, I think, from our customers, and also from partners like yourselves working with our customers as well on security, and the importance of really a security operations center and why they need that. And you touched on one of the elements, I think, that is part of a SOC, which is a SIEM. But when you think about, the other areas and the elements that are part of a SOC, it's looking at kind of having a centralized or consolidated cybersecurity, strategy that covers incident prevention. It covers security event monitoring. It covers things like detection and response capabilities. It supports other business units too. from their requirements and what is required coming into the business. Also, there's elements of firewall management and vulnerability management and things like that that go into it. And often what ends up happening is security operations centers, you can think of them, if you're familiar with the IT space or the technology space, as a NOC, right? A network operations center. And the SOC is really focused specifically around the operations of security. So it's really built on people, processes, technology, and the fundamentals that go into some of those elements that we were talking about earlier. But the idea is a SOC is really designed to, we think about kind of how the evolution has happened of security, where we started with, antivirus and firewalls and things like that, and evolved into next generation tools and even further into security platforms. All of those point products, if you think there's something like 3,000 vendors in the space, in the security space, where do you start? So really, Security Operations Center, or SOC, is designed to pull all of those elements into, one area. So looking at monitoring and analyzing activity across your networks, your endpoints, your servers, your databases, your applications, your websites, and other systems too. And I think the biggest thing there is the SOC is really, the department or the folks or the function that is going to look for anomalous activity that could indicate maybe a potential down the road of a security breach, or maybe there's an indicator of compromise or something that has happened there. And that SOC is responsible for ensuring that the potential security incidents, that everything is kind of like correctly identified, that it's analyzed, that ultimately the defense is put in place too. And then the investigation and reporting elements comprise, the operations of a SOC as well.
So, Matt, the on-prem SOC, Security Operations Center, is certainly the right option for some businesses. And I have a bit of real-world experience, which I hope adds value to this statement. Earlier in my career, I was a SOC analyst, and then later on for a different business that I worked for, I led a fantastic team of men and women in vetting those core components of a security operations center, and then also acquiring those components. And Highpoint Networks has certainly helped various businesses with that model, with that approach. However, I'd have to say, as you look at the majority of businesses, kind of the sheer numbers, I have to say that this Arctic Wolf Highpoint Networks partnership model, this SOC as a service, Security Operations Center as a service model, may be and is probably the best fit for them. So, Matt, I was wondering if maybe you could touch on a couple factors that you've seen or gathered as you speak with businesses all across the country to help our viewers gain a perspective on which option may work for them as they begin their SOC journey.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think one of the greatest needs, or the telling needs for needing to put a SOC in place, I think in general, is that if you look at the challenges that a lot of our customers face, right? Many don't have the resources to build their own SOC, right? Like, especially if you're a small business, if you're a medium business, even many large enterprises, they may have a security team, but one that they're necessarily not able to staff 24/7. And that's really the key, is that to do these things properly, to effectively defend against the threats of today and the advanced threats of today, it's something where you really need that 24/7 continuous monitoring. And it's not enough to just take in the data or the telemetry or the logs from firewalls and other sources. You need to be able to apply a level of intelligence there. And you also need to have somebody in place that is able to look at something anomalous and say, yeah, it's weird. Like, let's take a look at that a bit further. Because if you don't have those resources in place and you're only monitoring something, between business hours, potentially 8 to 5, what do you do off hours, in the middle of the night when the attackers are smart and they're from different time zones and things like that? Like, how do you defend against those? So I think it's really important to be able to bring your existing infrastructure and technology together to unlock the efficiency, the operational efficiency that's there. And I think a SOC really does that.
Matt, I wanted to get your view on this, and I think that pretty much all of our viewers today would agree that there are many technology components that make up a SOC, a Security Operations Center. And at the center of that is almost always something called a SIM, right? That maybe our viewers are familiar with. That's the Security Information and Event Management Platform. And then there's the technology components, I mean, specifically SOC components that support that. Maybe it's a threat intel feed, maybe it's continuous vulnerability assessment tool, ticketing agents, and so forth. And then there's the technology that actually plugs into the SIM, firewalls, the components of that, the Active Directory identity, and then auth endpoint, FIM, WAF, on and on and on and on, down the control rabbit hole. And then the more tech is that the professional services that are needed to spin the tool up, and the specific training maybe for your on-prem guys is to learn how to maintain and tune the SIM and supporting technology. And hey, I absolutely love technology. That's why I got into this field, but it's just tech. And the repeated fall down and scrape your knee moment that I see are when businesses approach their security operations center journey or strategic initiative primarily focused on technology. And it's usually not intentional. It just kind of happens. But once the SOC kind of gets stood up and rolling along, there's this almost like a light bulb kind of stand back aha moment. And folks go, oh my goodness, we should have spent more time and resources focusing on the operations of the SOC. And by this time, not getting a lot of value out of the SOC, it's hard to show that, I guess, to the CIO, the CFO, CEO board, and maybe your on-prem technology staff is getting overwhelmed by trying to support the tool and also be a SOC analyst and so forth, and on and on and on down the rabbit hole it goes. And I've come to this conclusion that technology is not enough. And just one last supporting factor that I see in this scenario that plays out is that when businesses get to this point of frustration that we just alluded on, sometimes they will completely rip and replace that core technology, that SIM, and they will move to another SIM, another brand, and another product, and another manufacturer, if you will, and they will begin their SOC journey again and repeat that same philosophy of not focusing on ops, and it just results in the same probability of the SOC not working out. So Matt, I'm wondering, as you speak with people across the country and even beyond that, if you kind of see the same type of pattern.
That's the critical element of all of this, is that it's really the complete circle, right? You need the people, you need the processes, and you need the technology. If you have the people without the process and the technology, you're not going to be effective, right? If you have the processes but you don't have the people or the technology, that's not going to matter either. And then if you have the technology but you don't have a way to actually action those alerts or those incidents, you're not going to be successful either. And so that's why I think if you're looking at the SOC approach, it's really critical to look to opportunities to have a team to do these things that have sophisticated workflows and sophisticated processes in place and have the technology. Because if you're right, I mean, if you're just deploying point products or tools, those are great for protecting one aspect of security, but they need to be monitored. You need to interact with those tools on sort of like a continuous basis, because if you're not, even the alerts that come in, you're going to end up drowning in alerts. And how do you know what to action on, or how do you know what is a critical event? So I think a lot of that, the perimeter and really the attack surface is continuously evolving. So just purchasing another tool and putting it out and expecting it, set it and forget it is not enough. It's really this journey. Security is a journey, not a destination. And a lot of tools will take that approach with just oh, set it and forget it, and then you don't need to worry about it because you're protected for infinity. And the truth is that the tactics evolve over time. That's really the reason why you need, I think, people in those places.
Matt, I was speaking with one of my colleagues here at High Point Networks, and he hands-on manages responses to like an incident or some type of urgent security-related need when a customer might give us a call. And there's a little pattern that I think I see where businesses have good layered security controls in places. But the bad guys are still somehow able to circumvent those layered controls. And it's typically a misconfiguration or something of that nature. And it's not a mad scientist that's coming in for some cross-channel attack. Again, it's a very simple and typical thing that the bad actor usually takes advantage of. And what we're seeing is this thought of a persistent threat where the bad actor is over a long period of time knocking on doors, probing around. Maybe they're even in the network for some period of time, looking and thinking about what type of attack that they'll launch. And I wonder if you're seeing that at Arctic Wolf as well, and how this High Point Networks Arctic Wolf partnership might be able to address and find those persistent threats in a preventative manner before an attack is launched or data is exfiltrated.
Yeah, like it just, I mean, to give you a bit of data to back up that point there too, Dean, I think we started to look at our existing customer base and, especially all of our folks, probably 100% of all of our customers have some combination of security tools in place that are meant to stop a thing. They're meant to stop a threat. They're meant to prevent something. And we find that within 73% of our customer base, we find like a latent threat. So something that's been hanging around in the environment within the first 90 days of the service. Wow. And what that means is that it's not a tool failure necessarily, right? What it means is generally that it's an operations failure, because in many cases, it could be a critical vulnerability that's been hanging around in the environment, or a threat or something that's been there that a tool has potentially alerted on. But what happens is there's not people around to action that and remediate or close that vulnerability. So, and I think that's why that ends up happening, is because things slip through the cracks and you're not able to sort of prioritize what you need to do next. And what happens is you end up with these threats lingering around in your environment that you don't even know existed. And that's it's like, to your point, I think it's something that we're just generally trying to help our customers with, is just provide that broad visibility and also the 24/7 monitoring to see more things and help our customers do more about that to remediate it.
Matt, in the spirit of keeping the conversation real here in the Wolf Bar, I have to say that trying to determine, project, and budget for a SIM, a security information and event management platform, which is the core component of a security operations center, was one of the most challenging things I had to go through as a CISO. And for our viewers that want a specific episode on traditional SIM licensing and maybe my experience and what I've seen with others, we can certainly do a dedicated episode on that. But I just got to warn you that I might go into a little bit of a kind of a passionate discussion there. So anyway, won't get into it today, but I'll kind of summarize it like this. The speculation on the quantity of licensing factors that are very fluid, and they can be kind of exponentially fluid depending on if your business kind of ebbs and flows throughout the calendar year. So taking that into consideration and just the many other factors that come into play. I almost went into it, but I won't. It becomes really difficult, and it's really important to understand and get that pricing right in order to get off on the right foot, starting your security operations center journey. I mean, if you come in and it's confusing for the CFO and others within the C-suite, it puts a bad taste in the mouth for the entire SOC journey. So Matt, I know that Arctic Wolf takes a unique approach to addressing some of these pain points, and I was wondering if you could just briefly hit on some of those today.
One of the things that we've introduced in the capabilities from a pricing perspective that is part of our platform is predictable pricing on logs, like just purely on log sources. So, you get unlimited search capabilities. So if you're looking for to achieve compliance, or you're looking for compliance reporting, you can have on-demand access to your log sources. We also retain those logs for a minimum of 90 days. Effectively, we can scale that up to as long as our customers need. But the whole concept there is that that's something that's just included as a native technology, a foundational technology with our platform. And it provides you with that pricing predictability. We also have an endpoint agent that we'll talk about in further episodes in terms of some of the capabilities there. But it's important to talk about here as well, because that's as well something that we don't license separately. We include that agent, the Arctic Wolf agent, as a foundational technology that enables, it's a platform element that enables our solutions and our concierge security team to deliver those solutions effectively. And the elements, I think, of pricing predictability, of being able to price on a per server and a per user basis versus endpoint, because right now, as we're sort of like we're sat in this wolf bar, we probably have a number of devices that we're tied to, and that's going to grow over time, right? You're going to have your watches connected, your everything else. There's a lot of connectivity things out there. And if you're going to price on a per endpoint, that's going to scale like in a non-linear fashion, your costs for a lot of customers as they add more users or more employees to the system with an amount of devices. So those are just a couple of ways that we've sort of, what are the ways that we're trying to provide value from a pricing perspective, and just really making sure that we're unlocking, I think, a lot of the nascent technologies and the capabilities there, but helping folks be a bit more effective.
There's this concept of the Arctic Wolf security concierge service. And in my opinion, when Highpoint Networks looked for a SOC as a service partner, I believe that it was looking for a partner that philosophically aligned with Highpoint Networks. And that philosophy is really this personal touch, kind of tailor-made, go the extra mile approach. And I believe that this concierge security service from Arctic Wolf is exactly that. And you can pick your buzzword, game changer, technology disruptor, whatever you want to, but this is truly that. And some of the stories that I've heard from customers that have maybe been with another service is just that lack of a personal touch. And I hope you can go into this a little bit, Matt. And frankly, this whole concept may justify its own episode in the future, depending on viewer feedback. But it sounds like there are named people that are dedicated to your account, your environment. So they become familiar with that as you communicate. You become knowing each other on a named basis, and they really literally become an extension of your security team. And just that alone, in my opinion, may be the biggest factor and the biggest driver to consider this Highpoint Networks Arctic Wolf Better Together relationship.
Yeah, that's a good point. I mean, that's one element, I think, of the concierge, security team here at Arctic Wolf, is just the direct access as well. So you have named security engineers, security operations experts that are paired directly to you. at any point in time. Obviously, you're able to connect with them. So you have access to that expertise in addition to like the guidance, which I think is just critical. If you're struggling with what to do next, they can be sort of that extension of the team just to bounce ideas off of. And it's something that I think is just, it adds that personal or white glove approach or touch to security as a whole, just to help them become more mature over time.
So to expand that thought on the concierge security team, I mean, obviously these are the folks that are there 24/7, and they're looking at logs, and they're filtering through the noise, and they're helping you tune and maintain and do custom things if that's needed. And I think that's kind of expected. But in addition to this assigned team where you get to know each other, and I mean, I can't get over that. But in addition to that, they really think and help you out strategically. Okay, so not only with the day-to-day operations, but they're also considering what Matt talked about, and which I completely believe in, is this evolution of your security capability, or this capability maturity model. So they're kind of looking down the road, and they're there as your advisor, really, and they might make different suggestions. And the beauty of this, in my opinion, is when you consider the High Point Networks Arctic Wolf partnership, and all that Arctic Wolf can do, supplemented with the small army of engineers and consultants and assessors and project managers, and obviously the purchasing and the offering of products from High Point Networks. When you marry that together with the concierge team from Arctic Wolf, it really makes for a force to be reckoned with. I mean, enterprise level security operations center as a service.
Yeah, absolutely. I think it's a critical piece of being able to deliver a service, right? Is the service is built on people, and those people have the expertise to help you out. Like, one of the biggest challenges that I hear from a lot of our customers is they don't know where to go for recommendations, right? You could be in a small town in South Dakota, or you could be somewhere in Texas or New York. It doesn't matter. The challenges are the same, in that across the sort of landscape of the folks that are trying to run their business and trying to protect the business against threats, or the organization against threats, they might be the CISO, they could be the COO, they could be the IT manager, they could be the director. There's a lot of different roles there. But fundamentally, they're all trying to do the same thing. They're all trying to increase the protection and really just like protect from threats. The trouble is they don't know where to go for advice. So a lot of times they might do a couple of Google searches. Maybe they've latched onto a Gartner report that says they should adopt this next IPS IDS system. But at the end of the day, they don't really know where to go. And I think one of the really unique benefits that our concierge security team provides is, first of all, they leverage all of that visibility that we get from the Arctic Wolf platform that you mentioned, right? From networks, from endpoints, from cloud environments. And they're able to, first of all, we have rules that would look at different things, and we can kind of like adjust alerts and thresholds from a triage perspective. That's kind of like capability, or foundationally number one, what our concierge security team does. And a lot of like what they do in sort of the operational level of it is just looking at the day-to-day. Are there new tickets? Are there sources of new log information? Are there configurations we need to look at? And having somebody in to kind of like filter through the noise, to get rid of those false positives, to see more, get the broad visibility, is really important. And that's the triage of the operations side. But the concierge security team also provides that strategic guidance, right? So through quarterly posture reviews or regular posture reviews, we're looking at how you are becoming more security mature along this sort of continuum of this journey, of the security journey. And I think it's really about like applying some of the lessons that the CST has learned from the unique understanding of the environment, which is critical too, to what you should be doing next from a strategy, a security strategy perspective. So it's, hey, we're going to write this custom rule for you, and we're going to make sure that when we see this combination of anomalous activity, that this is what we're going to create, an alert on. Or we recommend that because you don't have this sort of like system in place, a really good next step for you might be to purchase, like a threat deception type of activity or whatever it might be, with the goal of continuously improving, the customer's really improving their posture and guiding them, like applying strategic guidance that kind of pulls them or guides them along this continuum of a security journey. So it's really sort of like two critical aspects to it, in addition to what our customers would naturally get at the onboarding or deployment stage, which is the setup, the configuration. Like all of those things can be really challenging. If you're trying to deploy tools in an environment, how do you properly configure them? So our concierge security team will do that as well at the initial sort of like deployment and onboarding phase.
Well, Matt and friends, I think this guy over here just gave us the last call, so we better wrap things up today. But I wanted to thank everybody for coming out to Two Wolves in a Bar. I hope everybody liked this casual atmosphere and the real authentic language. And wow, did we cover a lot of topics today at a high level. And that was our intent, because we're thinking that we'll come back in future episodes and address some of those in depth. And even beyond that, we can jump into specific technology questions more in depth. We can get into operations, the concierge security service. We can even get into GRC if you want to, the governance, risk, and compliance, and how the platform can specifically help you meet those objectives if you have an audit coming up or something like that. But we just can't cover all of those topics in depth realistically. So we're going to rely on your communications, your questions, your comments, and your suggestions on how to drive those future episodes. And we'll leave information about how you can communicate with us to get that done. Now, in the meantime, I'd like you to consider or at least reflect upon this special Better Together relationship between High Point Networks and Arctic Wolf. And if you look at High Point Networks and the reputation and the brand that it's created or established over the last 20 years, it's built on that white glove treatment, that customer service, the listening to your needs, and then acting to help you get a real world result or solution, to see that quick time to value, that return on investment. And that's, of course, all backed by our people, our professional services, our products, our consulting, our project management, our fantastic account managers. And when you couple that together with this best-in-class SOC as a service platform from Arctic Wolf, it really makes for something special, a force to be reckoned with. In my opinion, this enterprise class platform that only some can obtain, we're making that available to you, available to the masses, a way to obtain this level of security and risk management that sometimes is just out of the reach for many. So until we meet next time, I want you to know that we will always save a place for you underneath the golden light of the chandelier here in the Wolf Bar. And wanted to send out a special thank you to Matt from Arctic Wolf in helping us through this conversation and guiding us and giving us some perspective on what you see across the country. And until we meet again, thanks for joining Two Wolves in a Bar.